The fluorescent lights in conference room B hummed with the same frequency as the anxiety building in my chest. I'd sat in this room hundreds of times over 15 years, but never like this. Never with HR Director Patricia Harrison refusing to make eye contact and senior partner Paul Brennan sliding a manila folder across the table like he was serving divorce papers. "Mark," Patricia began, her voice carrying clinical detachment, "we need to discuss some irregularities we've discovered in the Morrison Trust account." The Morrison Trust. My biggest client for 3 years. The account that had earned me my promotion to senior architect. I felt my stomach drop but kept my hands steady. "What kind of irregularities?" Paul leaned forward, his silver hair catching the harsh light. $80,000, Mark, missing from the client fund over the past 4 months. Every transaction traced back to your access codes, your digital signatures. The words hit like physical blows. My access codes, digital, signatures I'd never created. "That's impossible," I said, but I could see they'd already written me off. Paul opened the folder, revealing spreadsheets I'd never seen. Bank transfers bearing my electronic signature. Withdrawal authorizations with my employee ID. Transaction logs showing activity during times I remembered being elsewhere. "We've been conducting a quiet internal audit," Patricia continued. "The evidence is overwhelming. The board has asked me to place you on immediate administrative leave pending investigation." My phone buzzed. A text from Julia. "How's your day going? Thinking of you." The irony wasn't lost on me. My wife checking in while my world crumbled. Julia, who'd joined the firm as project coordinator 6 months ago. Julia, who'd been so supportive of my career, so interested in my work. "I want to see everything," I said. "Every document, every transaction log. This is wrong." Paul's expression didn't change. "You'll have access during the formal investigation. Right now, we need your badge, keys, and laptop." I'd built half the systems they were using to crucify me. Someone had used that knowledge against me, and they'd been surgical about it. Standing felt like moving underwater. I handed over my badge, keys to my corner office, my laptop still warm from the morning's presentation. The walk through the office felt like a funeral procession. Conversations stopped as I passed. Colleagues I'd worked with for over a decade suddenly found their screens fascinating. My office looked exactly as I'd left it. Coffee cup half full. Photos of Julia and me from our anniversary trip to Napa. Architectural models I'd built during late nights. Everything the same, except now it felt like evidence of a life I was no longer entitled to live. I grabbed personal items, photos, a book, my father's vintage slide rule. Everything else belonged to someone else now. The elevator ride down felt eternal. In the lobby, I passed the wall of partner photos where I'd hoped to see my face someday. Paul's portrait smiled down at me. Outside, Seattle rain had started, aggressive downpour that soaked through jackets. I stood there letting it wash over me, trying to understand how my life had imploded in 23 minutes. My phone buzzed again. "Julia, bad day? I'll make your favorite dinner tonight. Love you." Whoever had done this knew exactly which pressure points to hit. They understood our systems, protocols, vulnerabilities. This wasn't an outsider or crime of opportunity. This was intimate, personal, planned. Someone who knew me well enough to forge my digital signature had just destroyed my career. Someone who understood my routines had created false evidence during times I had alibis for. Someone with access to my codes had stolen $80,000 and made sure every trail led back to me. Walking to my car, one thought crystallized. This wasn't random. It was surgical. Whoever had wielded the scalpel had been planning this operation for a very long time. "Oh, honey, what happened?" Julia's concern felt warm as I walked through our door. But something about how she immediately set down her wine and came to me made my skin crawl. Too ready, too prepared for bad news. I told her everything. Accusations, evidence, administrative, Leave. She made all the right sounds, asked all the right questions, but watching her perfectly timed reactions, I felt like I was watching a performance. "This is insane," she said, curling up next to me. "Everyone knows how honest you are. 15 years, Mark. They can't throw that away." Her hand on my chest should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like she was checking if my heart was still beating, still fighting. "I need to review everything from scratch," I said. "There has to be an explanation." "Or Paul's finally showing his true colors," Julia interrupted. "I've seen how he looks at your success, Mark. Takes credit for your ideas. Maybe this is his chance to eliminate competition." Hearing Julia voice it felt wrong, too convenient, like she was steering me toward a conclusion she wanted me to reach. I spent 3 days in my home office, methodically dissecting the accusation like debugging faulty code. The spreadsheets contained dozens of transactions, but cross-referencing timestamps with my calendar revealed patterns that made no sense. Several withdrawals supposedly authorized by me when I'd been in Portland for the Henderson project. A large transfer dated at 2:47 a.m. when my home Wi-Fi logs would show my computer offline and I was asleep next to Julia. The digital signatures weren't perfect forgeries, close, but my eye caught subtle differences in vector curves. Whoever created them understood my signature's basic structure, but missed micro-variations I'd developed over years of signing architectural drawings. Good enough to fool HR, but not someone who'd been signing his own name professionally for 15 years. Julia had been working late most nights since starting at the firm. Project coordination, she'd said. Her laptop was downstairs, charging where she always left it. She was upstairs showering, humming something I didn't recognize. I didn't open it. Not yet. But I noticed things. Paul Brennan's name in her recent Outlook notifications. Not just 1 or 2, but dozens stretching back months. Far more emails than a project coordinator would need with a senior partner. "Find anything useful?" Julia asked, appearing in the doorway wearing my old Columbia t-shirt. "And nothing else. 6 months ago, the site would have stopped my investigation cold. Now I wondered if she'd chosen the outfit strategically." "Getting there," I said, closing her laptop without looking. Just trying to understand the timeline. She moved behind, me, hands on my shoulders, kneading tension I hadn't realized I was carrying. "You're brilliant, Mark. If anyone can figure this out, it's you. Just don't let Paul destroy what we've built here. This house, our life together. He's not worth it. Our life together." The words should have been reassuring, but they felt like a warning. Don't dig too deep. Don't risk what we have. That night, Julia fell asleep early, or pretended to. I lay next to her, listening to her breathing, studying the ceiling we'd painted together 3 summers ago. Everything about our bedroom told the story of a happy marriage, but marriages were like buildings. The foundation mattered most. I thought about her jewelry box, specifically new pieces that had appeared recently. Pearl earrings she'd worn to the firm's holiday party, gold bracelet she'd claimed was from her sister, diamond tennis necklace that appeared last month with some story about a bonus from her previous job, one she'd never mentioned before. The next morning, while Julia was at yoga, I found the receipt, hidden well, tucked inside pages of a cookbook she never used, but I'd built the custom shelving. I knew every book, every hiding place. 3,147, cash payment, dated 3 weeks ago, around the time the Morrison Trust showed suspicious activity. Technically proof of nothing, but it was a thread, and threads led to unraveling. I photographed it, returned it to its hiding place, and went back to my office. To think, Julia started at Brennan & Associates 6 months ago. Morrison Trust irregularities began 4 months ago. She'd been asking questions about my projects, casual questions over dinner, pillow talk about which clients paid most, innocent curiosity about financial systems. I'd thought she was interested, because she loved me. What if she'd been interested because someone asked her to be? What if my wife had become someone I'd never really known? or if she'd been that person all along and I'd been too trusting to see it. The architecture of my marriage might have been built on a foundation I'd never properly inspected. By Sunday night, Julia was asleep beside me, breathing deep and regular. I waited until certain she wouldn't wake, then slipped out to my office. I had maybe 10 hours before IT completed the system purge that would lock me out permanently. 10 hours to recover 15 years of digital history. Most people didn't understand that deleting emails was like tearing pages from a book. Words were gone, but traces remained embedded in the binding. Server administrators knew deleted files lived on in backup rotations, system caches, and audit logs for months before being truly purged. And I had designed half of Brennan and Associates' IT infrastructure. My personal laptop still had VPN access through my home connection. IT hadn't thought to revoke tunnel certificates, an oversight that would cost them dearly. I logged into the email server using my administrative backup account, the one I'd created years ago for system maintenance and forgotten to mention during exit. The deleted items recovery protocol I'd implemented ran silently, scanning backup partitions for conversation fragments someone had tried to erase. While it worked, I crafted targeted searches. Paul Brennan plus Julia Davidson, time-stamped within 6 months. First results appeared at 2:17 a.m., professional emails initially. Project coordination, client schedules, nothing suspicious. But timestamps told a different story. Conversations at 11 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m. Project coordinators didn't discuss file organization with senior partners at those hours. By 3:45 a.m., the tone had shifted. Email threads starting with "Per your request for Henderson files" evolved into "Thanks for dinner last night" and "Looking forward to seeing you again soon." The metamorphosis was gradual but unmistakable, professional courtesy bleeding into personal intimacy. The breakthrough came at 4:22 a.m., a recovered email from Paul to Julia, sent 3 weeks ago. Julia. Mark's too predictable, too comfortable in his position. He trusts the system because he built it, but every system has vulnerabilities its creator can't see. The Morrison account has enough volume to hide small discrepancies, and his access codes give us the perfect signature trail. Once he's out, his clients become mine automatically. The board already trusts me to handle crisis situations. My hands didn't shake as I took screenshots. That reaction would come later. Right now, I was in pure analysis mode, processing information like a machine designed for exactly this purpose. Julia's response, 20 minutes later. "I still feel guilty about this. Mark's been good to me, better than I deserve." Paul's reply was swift and calculating. "He's been naive about you, about us, about how business really works. You handle the technical alterations. You understand his signature patterns better than anyone. I'll manage board politics and media containment. The shell company is ready to receive funds." Shell company. I had them now. I dove deeper into server, logs, tracing financial authorizations and cross-referencing with access patterns. Paul had been clever, using my administrative credentials during off hours, creating fake vendor accounts with names similar to legitimate contractors. Brennan Construction Solutions instead of Brennan Consulting Solutions. Close enough to pass casual inspection, distinct enough to open separate bank accounts. But Paul had made one critical error. He'd underestimated the digital footprint of modern conspiracy. Recovered files revealed everything. Julia's detailed notes on my daily routines, signature variations, security habits, screenshots of my computer screen taken with her phone when I'd left my laptop open. Even voice messages to her sister automatically backed up to our shared family iCloud storage. I played one audio file through headphones, Julia's voice bright, with excitement. "Sarah, you won't believe how easy this is. Mark thinks I'm interested in his work because I love him. He explains everything, client accounts, authorization protocols, even shows me signature techniques when I ask about architectural drawings." Paul says once Mark's gone, I'll get his corner office and promotion to senior project manager. We'll finally have the life we deserve. The timestamp was 3 weeks old, right around when she'd bought the expensive bracelet. Another recording from 2 weeks ago. Paul promised me Mark's position once he's promoted to manage Paul's new department. He says the board sees potential in me, that I understand both technical and client service sides. Mark's too narrow, too focused on just architecture. They need someone who can see the bigger picture. I saved everything to multiple encrypted drives, then created backup copies on secure cloud servers Paul and Julia didn't know existed. By dawn, I had a complete digital autopsy of their conspiracy. Timelines, evidence chains, financial records, and their own recorded confessions. The most damaging evidence was Julia's casual admission. The brilliant part is that Mark trained me to forge his signature without realizing it. He's so proud of his penmanship, keeps showing me the precise angles and pressure points when he signs important documents. He thinks he's teaching me to appreciate craftsmanship. Really, he's giving me tools to destroy him. I sat back as first gray light crept through my office windows. Outside, the city was waking up, people starting another day in lives that made sense. Inside my house, I now had everything needed to dismantle the two people who'd tried to dismantle me. The question wasn't whether I could destroy them. The question was how completely, how publicly, and how permanently. I powered down my laptop, encrypted the drives, and went upstairs to shower before Julia woke up. In a few hours, I had meetings scheduled with a forensic accountant and a divorce attorney. Not because I was ready to act, but because I wanted to understand every weapon in my arsenal before deciding how to use them. Some people built with blueprints, others built with lies. I was about to show them the difference. The boardroom at Brennan & Associates hadn't changed since I'd started here 15 years ago. Same mahogany table, same leather chairs, same oil painting of the founder overlooking. Everything like a stern grandfather. What had changed was my perspective. Today, I saw it as a courtroom, and I was walking in with evidence that would serve as both defense and prosecution. Paul had called the emergency session for 10 a.m. sharp, exactly 1 week after my suspension. Quick resolution, he'd told the board. Minimize. Disruption to client relationships. Protect the firm's reputation. Demonstrate decisive leadership during crisis. I arrived 5 minutes early, carrying a leather portfolio containing printed copies of everything I'd recovered. The board members were already seated. Margaret, CFO, Robert Hayes, Senior Partner Emeritus, Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, whose trust fund was at the center of this, and Thomas Brennan, Paul's father and firm founder. Julia sat in the corner, a concerned spouse, officially, but I now recognized her real role as Paul's intelligence asset. She gave me an encouraging smile that I returned with the warmth I'd show a stranger. Paul entered at exactly 10 a.m., carrying his own portfolio and wearing the charcoal suit that photographed well for client meetings. He'd always understood presentation, looking like a leader even when he wasn't. "Thank you for accommodating this emergency session," Paul began, his voice carrying gravity of someone reluctantly shouldering necessary burdens. "As you know, we've discovered serious irregularities in the Morrison Trust account. $80,000 has been systematically diverted over 4 months. He distributed copies of the same doctored spreadsheets he'd shown me. Bank transfers, authorization codes, digital signatures, all pointing to me with prosecutorial precision. The evidence is overwhelming and unfortunately clear," Paul continued. "Mark's administrative access, his signature authorizations, his direct client relationship. We've traced every transaction, and they all lead to the same conclusion." Dr. Morrison leaned forward, studying documents. "This is deeply troubling, Paul. Mark has managed my account flawlessly for 3 years. Are you certain?" "I wish I weren't," Paul replied, his tone carrying just the right note of disappointed professionalism. "But the digital trails are irrefutable. It has verified the authenticity of every log entry." I let him present his entire case, taking notes like a man preparing final statements. Julia performed beautifully. Shocked spouse, concerned colleague, innocent bystander watching her husband's reputation crumble. She even managed tears when Paul mentioned potential criminal charges. "Mark," Margaret said, "do you have anything to say in your defense?" This was it. 15 years of trust and reputation balanced against fabricated evidence and false testimony. "I do," I said, standing and walking to the presentation screen. "But first, I'd like to show you some additional evidence that's come to light." Paul's confident expression flickered, just for a moment. But I caught it, the first crack in his facade. I connected my laptop to the projector, the screen filled with an email timestamp from 3 weeks ago. Paul Brennan to Julia Davidson, sent at 11:47 p.m. Mark's too predictable, too comfortable in his position. He trusts the system because he built it, but every system has vulnerabilities its creator can't see. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Paul started to speak, but I held up my hand. "Please, let me finish presenting the evidence before we discuss it." Next slide showed Julia's response, then Paul's detailed instructions about creating shell companies, then Julia's enthusiastic agreement to help frame her husband. I watched board members' faces transform from confusion to horror to disgust as they realized what they were seeing. "These are fabricated," Paul said, but his voice had lost authority. "Mark has obviously doctored these communications to deflect. Blame. Actually, Paul, these came from the firm's own email servers using our standard recovery protocols." I advanced to the next slide. Server logs showing original timestamps, system authentication records, backup verification codes. Everything authenticated by our IT department's own forensic tools. Dr. Morrison stood up abruptly. "Is that my trust fund you're casually discussing? My late husband's money you're stealing?" But I wasn't done. Next slide showed shell company bank records. Brennan Construction Solutions, account opened 4 months ago, receiving exactly $80,000 in transfers matching the missing Morrison trust funds to the penny. The routing numbers trace back to accounts opened with Paul's social security number and home address, I continued. The bank has confirmed his identity through their standard verification process. Paul was graying now, his confident demeanor cracking like a building, settling on a bad foundation. "This is impossible. You're fabricating evidence to what, Paul? Prove my innocence? Frame you for crimes you actually committed?" I clicked to the next slide. Julia's voice message to her sister, the audio file that would destroy them both. "Before we listen to this," I said, "I should mention that it was automatically backed up to a shared family cloud storage account. Nothing I could have altered or fabricated since the timestamps and authentication come from Apple's own servers." I pressed play. Julia's voice filled the boardroom, bright and excited. "Sarah, you won't believe how easy this is. Mark thinks I'm interested in his work because I love him. He explains everything, client accounts, authorization protocols, even shows me signature techniques when I ask about architectural drawings. Paul says once Mark's gone, I'll get his corner office. And promotion to senior project manager. We'll finally have the life we deserve." Julia went white, not pale, white. The color of someone watching their entire future collapse in real time. Thomas Brennan looked at his son with an expression I'd never seen before. Complete betrayal mixed with absolute disgust. "Paul, please tell me you have an explanation for this," Paul tried. He claimed I'd hacked their communications, fabricated the evidence, somehow manipulated Apple's cloud servers and the firm's email system to frame him. But each protest sounded more desperate than the last, especially when I revealed the final piece of evidence. Security camera footage from the office building showing Paul and Julia entering after hours on the exact dates when the fraudulent transactions were processed. "The building's security system isn't connected to our internal network," I explained. "Independent verification, impossible to hack or alter. Paul's key card access, Julia's visitor badge, timestamps matching the financial transfers to the minute." Margaret stood up, her face a mask of professional fury. Paul, you're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. We'll be referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. She turned to Julia. Ms. Davidson, your employment is also terminated. You're banned from firm property, and we'll be pursuing civil recovery of all funds involved in this conspiracy. Julia tried to speak, some desperate plea about being manipulated, about loving me, about making mistakes, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was watching Paul, seeing the moment when he realized that his carefully planned frame job had become his own trap. The board meeting's not over, Thomas Brennan said, his voice carrying the weight of 5 decades in business. We need to discuss Mark's position going forward. What followed felt surreal. Not just vindication, but elevation. Senior partner, Paul's office, Paul's salary, Paul's client relationships. The board didn't just want to make things right. They wanted to ensure that something like this could never happen again. And they believed the best way to do that was to put someone in charge who'd already proven he could defeat such schemes. 2 hours later, I was sitting in Paul's former office, my office now, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as security escorted them both to the parking garage. Paul walked with his head down, his career and reputation destroyed. Julia kept looking back at the building, maybe hoping to see me watching, maybe hoping for some sign that this was all a mistake. I gave her nothing. No gestures, no acknowledgement, no final moment of closure. She'd made her choices, and now she would live with the consequences. The rain had started again outside my new corner office, but inside, everything was perfectly clear. 6 months later, I sat in my corner office watching the Seattle skyline transform as another high-rise topped out in the distance. Brennan and Associates had been through what the business press called a leadership transition, though those who lived through it knew it had been controlled demolition followed by careful reconstruction. The firm was thriving. Client billings up 18%, 12 new architects hired, and the Morrison Trust had grown to become our signature project. Dr. Morrison had been so impressed by how I'd handled the crisis that she'd recommended us to 3 other family foundations. Paul's legal troubles had multiplied like structural cracks under pressure. Initial embezzlement charges led to investigations of previous projects, uncovering a pattern of small-scale fraud going back years. His wife had filed for divorce and taken everything in their settlement after learning about Julia. Not just the affair, but the cold calculation with which he'd destroyed his marriage, along with my career. He was facing 8 to 12 years in federal prison. Julia's situation was more pathetic. Criminal charges had been dropped in exchange for her testimony against Paul, but she'd been blacklisted from every architectural firm in the Pacific Northwest. My private investigators' reports showed her living with her sister in Spokane, working retail at a furniture store. Paul had abandoned her the moment his own world collapsed. The divorce had been finalized in record time. When your soon-to-be ex-wife's attempted embezzlement is classified as dissipation of marital assets, you tend to keep everything. The house, investments, even her jewelry collection, all legally mine now. I'd sold most of it. Proceeds went to a legal defense fund for fraud victims. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mark, please. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to explain. Paul manipulated me. I never stopped loving you. Can we talk? Julia. She'd been trying to contact me for months through blocked numbers, fake email accounts, messages passed through mutual acquaintances. Always the same theme: manipulation, regret, claims that Paul had somehow forced her into betraying me. I deleted the message without reading it completely. Some structures, once demolished, should never be rebuilt. The knock on my office door interrupted my thoughts. Sarah, our new project coordinator, entered with files I'd requested. She was competent, professional, and most importantly, had no personal relationship with any senior partners. I'd learned the value of maintaining proper boundaries. The Henderson approval came through, she said, placing the folder on my desk. Construction can begin next month. Excellent. And the Morrison Trust expansion? Dr. Morrison wants to move forward with the full campus design. She said finding an architect who actually protects his client's interests is rarer than she'd expected. After Sarah left, I returned to reviewing blueprints for our biggest project yet, a sustainable housing development that would employ 60 people and house 300 families. Real construction, building something meaningful instead of tearing down other people's lives. My wedding ring finger was bare now, a small white band of skin, the only remaining evidence of 5 years of marriage. I'd stopped noticing it weeks ago, the same way you stop noticing when chronic pain finally ends. My computer chimed with another message from Julia. I see your success in the news. I'm proud of you. I know you probably hate me, but I want you to know that what we had was real, even if I lost sight of it. I hope someday you can forgive me. This time I didn't delete it immediately. Instead, I studied it like a structural engineer examining a building plan, looking for load-bearing elements versus decorative facades. The apology contained the same fundamental flaw as the original betrayal. The assumption that her feelings mattered more than her actions, that intention could somehow retroactively justify betrayal. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Outside, the Seattle skyline continued its endless process of demolition and construction, old mistakes being replaced by new possibilities. My phone buzzed one final time, not Julia, but my assistant, confirming tomorrow's meeting with the city. Planning committee? We were proposing a mixed-use development that would revitalize a neglected neighborhood, bring in local businesses, and create affordable housing. Real architecture. Building something that mattered, something that would last, something that made the world better than it had been before. Tomorrow would bring new projects, new challenges, new opportunities to create something meaningful. But tonight, I'd enjoy the view from my corner office, watching the city lights reflect off the rain-slicked streets, secure in the knowledge that some structures, once properly built, could weather any storm. The architecture of betrayal had been complex, carefully planned, and ultimately self-defeating. The architecture of aftermath was simpler. Clear foundations, honest materials, and the patience to build something that would last. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.